April is Financial Literacy Month, and did you know that those with low financial literacy are 2.5 times more likely to spend 10 hours or more thinking about personal finance issues and problems? So let's make sure that you can spend less time thinking about money and more time being financially confident. Welcome, new and returning Money Buddies. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming, and today I'm going to help you understand both the reality of financial literacy in America and understand how it applies to us young adults. And honestly, financial literacy in America isn't a great situation. So if you feel like you're struggling financially or you can't quite grasp all that you need to know about money, it's okay. So many other people are in your exact same shoes. But the thing that most people are not doing is trying to learn more and listening to podcasts like this one to do better with their money. So give yourself a break, take a deep breath, and use today as a starting point to change your financial situation for the better. Because like the stats that we opened up today's episode with, you don't want to be someone who spends a ton of time thinking about your money and stressing about it. By the end of today's episode, you will know how to assess where your financial literacy stands, and you'll know some simple steps to start improving it. And as a financial planner, of course, I feel confident with money because it's my profession and I've spent a lot of time learning about it. And you'd hope that I'd have a good grasp on money, right? But the thing that shocked me about today's episode is how grim the financial literacy situation is in America. So I hope you learn as much today as I did researching and putting this episode together. But I really want to make sure that you understand that you can do better with money. So let's continue learning. I'm extremely excited to share today's episode with you and help introduce financial literacy as we get into April, which is Financial Literacy Month. So let's get into today's episode. What is financial literacy? Well, I have a lot of articles linked in the show notes, but this first one that is a personal finance index research study says that U.S. adults only correctly answer about 1/2 of their index questions each year. And financial literacy tends to be the lowest among the youngest cohort, which is us, Gen Z. But don't be worried if you don't feel like you're fully financially literate. Financial literacy is this general understanding of economic and financial principles in order for us to do better with our money and not succumb to so many traps that we'll talk about here in just a moment. It's a common problem that we all face. We all feel like we weren't taught about money in school, and that's because it's probably true. Today's episode is going to help you feel motivated and understand the reality of financial literacy. Because if you're listening to this podcast, I can promise you that you're ahead of the average. Most people don't seek out financial content or financial education or any sort of helpful information about money. So congrats. Give yourself a pat on the back for being here and wanting to do better with your finances. But to help us understand the reality of low financial literacy so that you know what you want to work away from, I found some stats that are going to show you how dire the circumstances are for the financially illiterate and how hard it can be if you're in that boat. This next quote says that those with very low levels of financial literacy are 2 times more likely to be debt constrained, 5 times more likely to not have enough emergency savings for 1 month of living expenses, 2 times less likely to cope with a $2,000 financial shock, and 2.5 times more likely to spend 10 hours or more thinking about financial issues and problems. One of my favorite things to say comes through in this data. And that is if you're willing to put some time into your money every single month to improve your financial literacy and understand your situation, you're actually going to spend far less time thinking about and worrying about your money than someone who's afraid to put in the commitment to budget or to start to get a handle on their financial situation. People who don't have high financial literacy or dismiss thinking about their money are actually 2.5 times more likely to spend 10 hours or more thinking about their financial issues and stress. That's a jarring statistic. I don't want to spend 10 hours or more thinking about financial stress. Do you? So let's put you in a place where you can avoid being debt constrained, where you can avoid not having enough emergency savings, where you can avoid not knowing how to deal with a financial shock. And let's keep you out of a place where you don't have to spend so much time worrying about money. And this next article we're going to talk about tells a little bit more about Gen Z and young adults and financial literacy. It's from WalletHub.com, and their quote says, Gen Z is the least financially confident generation, as more than 1 in 4 Gen Zers say they're not confident in their financial knowledge and skills. That's what we're trying to change. That's what this podcast is all about. This will naturally go up in time. All of these articles tended to state that the youngest generation was the least financially literate, but with time and experience, we become more financially literate. But I wouldn't be surprised if we end up having a higher financial literacy rate quicker than older generations, because as young adults, we're more aware of these things, and we're very aware that we need to learn about money, more so than any previous generation, I would argue. And that's thanks to all this online content and the availability of good financial education online. So with all of these articles tending to say that the younger generations are in a bleak situation, I actually think we're in a pretty good situation, because like all of those of you listening, we want to learn, and we learn a lot more a whole lot quicker. So I think we're going to be pretty well off, but we just need to keep talking about it. Because why is this financial literacy topic so important? This next article shows how much money it can cost. And it says, quote, "Why low literacy costs more than you think. People may lose an average of $948 per person each year due to the gaps in money knowledge." As I was reading through all of these articles, I wasn't shocked at the fact that you may spend more time thinking about money if you don't have high financial literacy, but I was shocked at how much money we're losing every year due to these gaps in our money knowledge. Think about this. What could you do with $1,000 more per year? Just throwing it straight into a retirement account at a 10% rate of return over 40 years could get you like $400,000. That's nothing to scoff at. And remember, if you're listening to financial content like this podcast or reading other great books, you're saving yourself so much money just by listening to this content and responsible financial media. You're saving yourself potentially $1,000 a year than if you were to let these knowledge gaps slip into your financial literacy. So that's why it is so important. And I also wanted to provide with you a test so that you can understand, what is my financial literacy at? Because if you don't know where you're actually at, how can you improve? So I linked in the show notes a link to a wallet literacy test on wallethub.com. I scored an A- on the test, and honestly, I think I was rushing through it a little bit, or I would have got some more correct. But I would love for each of you to take that survey and leave a comment on how you scored, because we all do better with money together by talking about it. So if we talk about where we're at, we can all learn where we need to improve. So let me know how you do on this wallet literacy test. Leave a comment down below, and I would love to help you improve it. If you want to make sure that you're not leaving $1,000 a year on the table with some major financial knowledge gaps. But now that you know where you stand, let's start talking about how to actually close those gaps and understand how you can improve your financial literacy. Well, this article from Intuit gives 7 steps that we'll talk about a little bit more. 1, start with the basics. 2, take a course. 3, read books, listen to podcasts, or watch videos from reputable sources. 4, use financial tools and apps. 5, practice. 6, learn about debt management. And 7, engage in conversations. Number 2, about taking a course, I linked one down in the show notes on Khan Academy. It's a free course. You can take that and begin to improve your basics around financial literacy. But the 2 that I really want to hit on are practicing and engaging in conversations. Practicing is a big deal. It's okay to have your budget not go well, because that's what practicing is. For those first couple of months when you start budgeting, it's not going to go quite right. But you keep practicing and you begin to hone in those skills, and you'll do so much better 3 or 4 or 5 months into it. And the other one that's extremely important is engaging in conversations. When we talk about money with others, we all do better with money together. That's the whole purpose of my last podcast, Money Talk. And as we head into Financial Literacy Month, talk about money more with your coworkers, with your family members, with your friends, and anyone else where the conversation may come up. We have to make sure to not shy away from financial conversations, because that's how we all do better with money together. But here's a specific tip for young adults. It says, quote, "Young adults, new responsibilities will show up fast, like paying bills or managing student loans. This is actually an ideal time to start setting goals and use tools to make budgeting easier to stay on top of. And for those of us, young adults, right now is such a great time to build good financial habits, because complexity will find you. Take things one step at a time, because for me, and I'm sure everyone else listening, like I said, complexity will find you. So if you can build a solid financial foundation right now, it's going to be so much easier to add things onto it. If you can figure out how to budget now when your income is smaller and a little tight, it's going to be a whole lot easier to keep control of your spending when your income's a whole lot bigger and you have more flexibility. So write down your goals now, and then it's going to be even easier to stick to them, and it's going to be even easier to stay on track when those 1 million other things suddenly start showing up, when everything starts taking all sorts of different detours. So remember, your new responsibilities are going to show up fast, But if you can start now, it's going to be so much easier to add them onto your plan. And lastly, for today's research, I want to wrap up with the benefits of being financially literate. Another article from Intuit says, quote, a MarketWatch report found that nearly 70% of Americans cite finances as their biggest source of stress. Being financially literate can help reduce one of the biggest stressors in most Americans' lives. Really think about this next question. What would it mean to you to not have money be a source of stress? And while your money may not be perfect forever, and stress will certainly come up, but it can be so extremely helpful to have periods in your life where you don't have to worry about money. To go back to my earlier stat of spending 10 hours or more thinking about money, you can get rid of that. You can get rid of that 10 hours of stress when you become financially literate and understand money a bit more. So what are some of the other benefits of being financially literate? The article says that it can include improved money management, better debt management, enhanced wealth building and future planning, and increased financial confidence. And of course, it's kind of obvious that you would do better managing money and be better at managing debt, but the last two there, those are the real game changers. Being better at future planning means that you have a better grasp on understanding how your decisions now are going to impact your life, and you have a better grasp on what kind of decisions you can make when you want to impact your life and make changes. Because one of the most common challenges that I see is people feel like their life is controlling them, that they have to go to work. So I think getting a better grasp on your financial literacy can be a great way to get out from under that very heavy rock. It's a great way to get your life back under control. Money impacts us in so many more ways than we realize. And so when we can be confident with our money, you're not going to feel like you're stuck. You're not going to feel like you're forced to work or forced to maintain a certain status of life. You're going to know how to get out of it. You're going to know how to take control of your life and take advantage of the opportunities that you want to. And of course, financial confidence is a big one. Are you confident you could handle a financial emergency? That's a really massive one that comes from being financially literate and not something that seems like a financial emergency right now, like a car repair or something. Honestly, those can be kind of minor once you get your savings in order. Could you handle a financial emergency like a very sudden job loss combined with maybe something else happening financially? I don't want to scare anybody, but if you don't immediately feel fear around the idea of losing your job and maybe a medical bill, then you're probably doing fantastic. If you can start to play out some sort of major financial emergency in your mind, and one of your first thoughts is, well, we'd figure it out when that happens, that's fantastic. When you're able to develop your financial literacy to be at a strong point, you don't freak out or panic once you even just start thinking about financial emergencies, especially those minor ones that can become really big if you're not prepared. My wife and I have experienced this firsthand with several flat tires on our car. Like I said, these move to a minor issue when you have some financial confidence. And I want to help you all get to the point where a flat tire is a minor issue and not a major emergency. As we head into the month of April, which is Financial Literacy Month, I hope this helped all of you get an understanding of why it's so important to share and help other people become financially literate. We all need to be talking about money more, and today's case study is going to be a great example of how you can develop and improve your financial literacy and just how big of an impact that can have on your life. So let's set the table with today's case study and give you some background on it. Today we're going to be talking about Tanner, who is 26 years old, single, works for an insurance company in Ohio, earning about $68,000 per year. His income seems like it should be enough for him, but he doesn't feel like it's actually getting him anywhere. He grew up in a middle-class household where his parents worked hard but never really taught him about money beyond just don't spend more than you have. Nobody taught him how credit cards actually worked, how interest compounds, or what a 401k even is. So when he got his first real job, he did what felt normal. He spent his money. He spent less than he made, but over time, he lost track of it. He put things on credit cards when he was a little short, told himself he'd pay it off over the next few months, but never quite did. So he actually sat down to look at his balances, and he was carrying $6,200 across 2 credit cards with interest rates above 20%. He doesn't feel broke, but now it feels like his goals are running away from him, and he's never going to be able to actually retire. Every time he opens a financial article or watches some video online, he feels more confused and overwhelmed than when he even started. He's not sure how to actually get a grasp on this. And this is such a common situation because we're not taught about money. When we're just told to spend below your means or live below your means, it can leave so much of a gap. That's where that $1,000 a year that we lose every single year per person to low financial literacy can come into play. Over time, you build up credit card debt and you feel like all of your goals are running away from you. So how do you actually get back on track with this? Well, we're going to walk through that through the lens of Tanner today. And to start out, the light bulb finally clicked for Tanner when he was sitting down for lunch and a coworker friend mentioned a podcast they were listening to. So like you, he started listening to podcasts. He started leaning into some of these great ideas, listening to some episodes during his commute, reading some books, and doing all the right things. He started to get ideas flowing in his mind, and within a couple months, he went from completely confused about money to actually having an idea of something he could do. And hopefully that's the point you're at now if you're struggling with money, is that you're at a point where you know some things you could actually do. So Tanner started with a tip that I always mention from the get-go, and that's track where your money is actually going. Understand where it's coming from and where it's going out to. You could do this with a simple spreadsheet, or you could sign up for a trial of one of the many apps out there that'll connect your accounts directly to them. This allowed Tanner for the first time ever, and it's going to allow you to actually see where your money's going. And Tanner in this situation realized it wasn't a pretty picture. He had over $400 a month that was just disappearing to various subscriptions, eating out, or impulse spending. He had subscriptions for random things in his car, his exercise watch that he didn't even realize was a subscription. So now he was able to cut out the obvious things because he was tracking his spending. He knew that a lot of these subscriptions and random spending were not aligned with where he wanted to actually go with his money. And then he was able to set a realistic budget once he actually knew where it was all going. And that's one of the primary things I want to hit on. Don't try to set up a budget until you actually know where your money is going. Once you actually know where it's going, it's going to be a whole lot easier to set a realistic budget month to month. Because Tanner suddenly found an extra $400. If he didn't know about that $400 beforehand, he's going to be frustrated and angry that his budget just isn't working. But when he's able to realize and clean up some of his spending first, that extra $400 can go directly to the high interest credit cards and start working on meaningful goals. So now that the realistic plan is in place and Tanner knows where his money is actually going, he was able to build a real habit around his plan. He was able to set up autopay on his credit card so that he never had to worry about missing a payment, and then all of those extra payments were able to knock down his balance faster and faster. He set up a biweekly transfer to his savings that's automatic whenever he gets his paycheck, and he finally enrolled in his company's 401k and started contributing enough to get his employer match. This is a full turnaround. This is a complete change in his financial situation. And now, a few months later, he's more confident than ever with his money. And he knows it doesn't have to be that complicated. He was able to just learn some things and get some actual goals and progress achieved. He was able to get some of the basic things under control, and now he's at a point where he knows what he's doing. And even now, his coworkers are starting to ask him questions about money, and they're starting to bring up conversations asking how they can improve their financial literacy. They started asking things like, what's a Roth IRA? How much money should I be contributing to my retirement? How did you pay off your credit cards? What is a 401k? And while you may not have the answer to all of these questions, that's okay. Now you have the resources. You have this podcast. You have authors of the books you've read. You can refer people to those resources and point them towards where you learned all of your financial information. And now you're going to be able to get yourself to a really fun point where you're the unofficial money guide for your coworkers or your family or your friends. And of course, you don't have to be the true financial planning expert and go out and get your financial planning certificate or whatever, but you're going to be a great resource that people are going to be willing to talk to about money. And that's how we share financial literacy with everybody. So what is the result in Tanner's life? Well, in 14 months, he was able to pay off all of his credit cards. And that's when he really started increasing his financial literacy. He now has thousands and thousands of dollars sitting in a high yield savings account. This is his first real emergency fund ever. And Tanner has never felt more confident with money. And all it took was a little bit of guidance on getting him started to become financially literate with the basics. And now the real awesome thing here is that Tanner shared he feels like he's finally able to achieve his goals. He feels like retirement's going to be something he could actually do. And guess what? He feels like he can actually afford a house now. The biggest shift for him wasn't his bank account or his balances, it was his confidence. Money stress is gone. And that is the biggest thing here for you and for Tanner in this situation. When you seek out to learn a little bit more about the basics and increase your financial literacy, money stress goes out the window and you feel like you're in control. And the thing I want to touch on is while this podcast is normally focused on some of the things beyond the basics with financial planning, it's important to remember how crucial and important financial literacy is, because we can't just forget about financial literacy and ignore it, because we have to make sure the basics are set in stone and in place, because once they are, stress is going to go away and we can move up to a new tier of financial planning and really begin to make money work for us. That's when it becomes fun. That's when it becomes something we can share with other people and help everyone do better with money. So what's your big takeaway from today's episode? Mine is how much stress we save and how much money we save when we are able to become confident with our money. I actually went after writing this episode and shared it with my wife right away. The people who struggle with financial literacy are 2.5 times more likely to spend 10 hours or more, and it might be costing up to $1,000 per person per year due to those financial knowledge gaps. So now that we're here at the end, I want to hear what your big takeaway was. And I want to wrap up this whole episode, and please let me know your thoughts and what you were able to take away. So the one action item for each of you listening today is to share what you learned about financial literacy with a friend. By doing this, you're able to help other people improve their financial literacy and help everyone do better with money. And as we head into April and Financial Literacy Month, I want you to be thinking about how we can all do better with money together. Like I said on my old podcast, Money Talk, we do better with money together by talking about it together. So go out and share what you learned about financial literacy with a friend and have a money talk. And then be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We have some fantastic episodes lined up in April, including a brand new guide that's right on the horizon. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a fantastic resource for all young adults out there. It's going to answer your question on how to get started in all of the different areas of financial planning. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you want to get started with financial planning, I would love to help. I have a link right at the top of the show notes where you can schedule a free phone call with me, and we can figure out what's going on in your life with your money and help you get to a point where you feel confident that your money is doing what you want it to do. So at the top of the show notes, click the link, schedule a free call, and let's get your financial plan going. And next week, like I mentioned, we're going to have something huge coming to the show. Have you ever wondered how to get started with financial planning as a young adult? Next week is going to be the solution on how you can get started. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Financial Planning for Young Adults. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming. Have a great week. And hey, quick heads up. This podcast, it's meant to be educational and it's for entertainment purposes. It's not personalized financial advice for your specific situation. So before you go out and make any big money moves, make sure you chat with a qualified financial professional who knows your full financial picture.